This should be a fun one. Today, I'm doing 3 bow tuning myths that a lot of you guys are falling for. I'm fully prepared to get lit up in the comments, and that's cool with me. Let's get right into it. So the first one is that vane alignment matters. If you don't know what vane alignment is, it is the idea that you should have your broadhead blades lined up with your vanes. So if you're shooting a 4-fletch, you would have a 4-blade broadhead on the front, and you would have the blades and the vanes perfectly lined up. Same would go for a 3-blade system. You'd be shooting a 3-fletch. It doesn't matter at all. And I promise you this. I've tested it, but rather than explaining my testing, I'll just tell you about why it doesn't work. Because I hear a lot of people say, well, when I index, it truly does make a difference. First of all, I believe there's a placebo aspect to that. I believe that you want it to work, and wanting something to work really bad in your heart can actually make it seem like it's working. The reason that vane alignment doesn't matter is because if the front end of your arrow has an impact over the flight of the overall arrow, something is wrong in your setup. But aside from that, the reality is that any quality fixed blade broadhead will fly like a field point, and I mean just like a field point, out of any setup if the broadhead is quality, the arrow is spine matched and well built, your form is good, and if your bow is set up properly. Under these conditions, any quality broadhead will fly just like your field point without adjustment. And I prove that on a weekly basis in this shop to all of my people who come and see me. Vane alignment doesn't help this. And if you believe that it does, what it tells me is that there's something deeper in your setup that's an issue. If you believe that indexing your broadheads with your vanes actually makes your broadheads fly better, I would urge you to look deeper into your setup and deeper into your system and find what the issue truly is. Could it be spine matching? Could it be your form? Could it be your timing? I mean, there's a huge list of things, and I've got so many videos about this stuff. But the truth is that vane alignment just does not matter. It's not worth the time. When I tested it, it was the summer before I was going to Spain for my Gritos Ibex hunt. And I had my dozen arrows that I was bringing to Spain, and I shot with them all summer. 6 of them I indexed, and it was a 4-fletch with the 4-blade tooth of the arrow in the front. 6 of them I indexed, 6 of them I didn't, and there was no marking. So, at quick glance and just shooting, I wouldn't be able to tell unless I really paid attention. And I would shoot these all summer. Some days I would pay attention to which were which, some days I wouldn't, and I just never noticed a difference. And I mean at all. Of course, I'd have days where I was shooting poorly, but I'd be then shooting poorly with the indexed and the non-indexed. It didn't really matter. When it came to the hunt, I shot this Ibex and I made a perfect shot. I'll put the picture somewhere here so you guys can see right where I hit him. And I had no idea which arrow I grabbed. In the end, it was a non-indexed one. So if you like vane indexing and it makes you feel good to have your blades indexed with your vanes, by all means do it. If it makes you feel good about your setup, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you think that there's a real benefit from you doing it, you need to look deeper into your system. Archery tuning myth number 2 is that bare shaft tuning can replace paper tuning. And I'll cut to the chase right now. Someone's going to comment, you're shooting an arrow through paper in both methods. It's paper tuning no matter what. Why do we okay, that's fine. We refer to paper tuning as shooting a fletched arrow through paper, and bare shaft tuning is shooting a bare shaft through paper. Yes, they're both through paper. That's just what the industry has coined the terms. I don't bare shaft tune at all. And there's a very simple reason. I'm never going to shoot a bare shaft at an animal. I don't care how they fly. When you put vanes on an arrow, you do it because it controls your arrow and because it changes the way your arrow comes out of your bow. So I don't care how my bow shoots a bare shaft. It means nothing to me. If you like bare shaft tuning and it's an important part of your system, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And it can be, checking a box as you go through the steps of having your setup perfectly dialed. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you intend on shooting a fletched arrow at an animal, you should be shooting that fletched arrow through paper to see how it's coming off your bow. As soon as you release your string with a fletched arrow, in that distance that your string is accelerating and launching that arrow, the vanes are already moving so much air that they are changing the way the arrow is going to come off your bow. So bare shaft tuning can be an important part of a lot of setup and building systems for a lot of guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you should never go from bare shafts to the field. You always need to at least throw proper paper tuning in as a step after bare shaft tuning. I have dozens upon dozens of people come in the shop every year, and every single person's bow, for the most part, gets paper tuned and sent out the door. They all shoot their broadheads and field points the same. Whatever their choice in broadheads is, I make it work, and not a single one is bare shaft tuned. I don't bare shaft at all in my shop, except for when I've tested it and played with it to educate myself on it, and it just doesn't do it for me. Paper tuning will solve every problem that bare shaft tuning will, and it takes an entire step out of the equation that you just don't need to mess with. The third archery tuning myth to dispel is that FOC matters. This one might light up the comments, and that's cool with me. I don't mind. Now, I'm not saying FOC doesn't totally matter, that you don't want to have a heavier front end than the back end, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you should never target a certain FOC. You should never build an arrow with a certain FOC in mind. And you should never change your arrow build to achieve a certain FOC. I have no idea what the FOC of my arrows is. I've never measured it in the last probably 5 years. It just doesn't matter, and here's why. When you're building an arrow, you should be building that arrow to hit a target speed range. Arrows fly best in the 270 to 290 feet per second speed range. Every projectile has an optimal speed at which it flies. And for arrows, this is the range it falls in. It's like, a dart player. When you watch darts on TV, which is hilarious, by the way, I love it, they lob the darts. They're not throwing them as hard as they can. And there's a reason for this. The darts fly optimally at the speed that they're throwing them. If any of you guys reload out there, you'll know that as you add powder to your casings and you're testing loads, there comes a certain point where you've pushed the velocity too far and the groups start to open up. There's no different with arrows. I'm not saying you can't have good arrow flight at 310, 320 feet per second, but optimal, especially with fixed blades, is that 270 to 290 feet per second range. So when I'm building an arrow, I am targeting the heaviest arrow I can that will keep me within that speed range. Anytime you're adding or removing weight from an arrow, adding or removing a significant amount of weight, we're talking 25, 50, 75 grains, to achieve a certain speed, that's always going to come or go from the front end of your arrow and change your FOC. And in that sense, you don't have control over your FOC. This is what I call the golden rule of arrow building. And I've got a whole nother video. I'll put it up here for you guys to check that out. The golden rule of arrow building. It gets everything within a perfect window. The balance between your arrow speed and your weight and your FOC, if you choose to measure it, it all falls into this perfect window when you follow this golden rule. I'm not saying this is the only way, but I'm saying this is the only way I do it in my shop, and it works really, really well. I've never had an issue with it. So I don't chase FOC. I don't even know what mine is. For that reason, I believe FOC doesn't matter. Chase a target speed, not a target weight. Now, I fully expect the comments to blow up, good and bad. Don't care. Whatever you guys want to tell me, I'm here for it. I've started responding to most of the YouTube comments over on the Let Off podcast, because then I can actually read them out loud and talk through them and give you a better answer than if I'm just typing. So if you leave a comment, I will reply back with which episode of the Let Off I am responding to it on, and you can check it out over there. Thank you guys so much for all the support on everything I'm doing, and we'll see you next time.